Eli Gold. I'm sure it's been a busy, 18, 19 hours for you, right? No text messages, anything, right?
Actually, I've had a few. It's not been overwhelming, basically because a lot of folks don't have my cell phone number and I'm not on social media. So that cuts down on that. But, certainly it's gotten some attention, obviously. And I must say, I was just sitting here listening to that cut from the end of the ball game against Georgia, and not because it was me talking, but just in general. You never get tired of hearing that if you're a Bama fan, I'm telling you.
No, listen, we do. And it gets me fired up, and I think it gets the audience. Obviously, that's our intro every single day, and, we hear that 5 out of the last 9 years. And, you almost, and I'm sure you're probably like this too, yeah, we realize what Nick Saban has been able to accomplish, but I don't know if we'll truly appreciate it where we get 10 or 15 years down the road and we'll look back and we'll go, he did what? He did what? I mean, he went, the amazing record.
Well, I think we all appreciate it and understand it now, but I think you're right. It'll be heightened even more so as the years and the decades and who knows how long click by, and still nobody has matched what the man has done. So, you look back at last year with, so many injuries at the same position. You guys know the whole story, and your listeners do. You just shake your head. But the man is absolutely spectacular, and his coaching staffs have been so good. It's not just the players, although they've got to make the plays, but they've also got to be coached, and there have been so many changes, as is the case this year, heading to 2018 season. But what he is able to orchestrate it is beyond belief. It really is.
Well, I think the one question, when you talk about the coaching changes, and I'm looking at, 3-4 different publications here, Phil Steele, Athlon, Lindy's Sports Magazine, a couple of others, and I'm thinking Alabama just went through the changes, went through losing all that NFL talent. It was a record-setting year for the Crimson Tide, new coaches. But as you look at all the experts in the desert, everybody has Alabama as the team to beat. So a lot of expectations, even though they've lost all the talent, coaches, and players, they're still the team to beat in college football.
Well, it's because the man is a magnificent recruiter. And, we talked about that. Not to pat myself on the back, but I mentioned that to him on our pregame show for the Golden Flake A-Day game, okay, going back to April. We did a modified pregame show because we weren't on the air for 3 hours before kick. And I said to him, one of the questions was, I said, Coach, I said, rightfully everybody's talking about your players, who's come, who's gone, this, that, and the other. I said, but what about your group? Your coaches, so many changes, new faces, new positions for some. And he said, look, my guys have fit right in. They're all learning one another. They are working well together. So he's not only a recruiter of players, he is a recruiter of coaches. And let's be quite honest here. You're taking a look at head coaches who have come to Alabama in different roles because they have wanted to learn from the man. You never stop learning in this business, regardless of what. I mean, you'll learn something on the show today that you didn't know yesterday, whether it's something to do with how to run the show or some factoid or whatever. You always learn, and who doesn't want to learn? At the foot of the master. And I don't want to make that sound too strange, but the guy is that good and that well thought of.
Hey, and we're enjoying it, but as you look around the league, around college football, it probably seems a little frustrating if we were in their shoes looking at trying to keep up with what's happening in T-Town.
Well, I understand that. But, just get out and work. If you want to be more competitive, get out and maintain the type of work schedule, work ethic, that the coaches at Alabama do, that the players at Alabama do. I mean, how many, you've probably seen it here lately, guys going to the NFL. I don't know if it was Deron Payne last week or somebody said, hey, man, this is just like what we did at Alabama. I mean, Nick Saban takes it to that nth degree, and that's what wins for you. And his love of recruiting, like we were talking before. I mean, I can't imagine any other team that could have lost 97,000 linebackers last year, and still not only played for the national title, but won the national title through what for much of the year was a next man up kind of theory, if you will, or out of necessity, a next man up situation. So, it's just remarkable. But the guy is good. And if you want to excel, not only in the classroom, because he is very much a stickler for work in the classroom, but if you want to excel both there and on the field and you're a player, I mean, you'd be nuts not to buy into the whole thing.
Yeah, I had Ozzie Newsome on probably 5 weeks ago, and we were sitting down here talking, and we were just talking about interviewing Alabama players. And he said, I sat down and I talked to college players all over the country as we prepare for the NFL draft. He said, but when I sit down and I talk with an Alabama guy, I feel like I'm talking to a guy that has a PhD in football. It is so much above everybody else. He said everybody else may have a master's or a bachelor's in football, but when you sit down with an Alabama guy, he said the way they understand the game is unreal. You're sitting there talking to a young man.
There was the coach from the Dolphins said that recently, talking about Minka and so many others, and I believe Jay Gruden did as well when he was talking about Allen from last year and Payne from this year. It is. I mean, these guys are, and of course, in this day and age, you've got to be not only excellent, not just at Alabama, but at the top, all the top schools. You don't have to be just excellent as a physical specimen and a player with talent. You've got to be bright, man. These playbooks, are so complex that you've got to be able to understand and grasp all that's going on, and it all, and that again is part of the process. And it's been wonderful. I've been so blessed to have a front row seat to watch it unfold over all these years.
Well, I think your calls have become as historic, and we love to. If we're ever slow on the interaction and we need to fire people up, we just go back and play some highlights, some clips. I mean, it just something about you describing those plays. It kind of gets us all in the mood for football.
That's very nice of you, Ryan. Thank you. But again, you're always a better broadcaster if you have a good story to tell. These plays are there, and they're there to be talked about and called because somebody's making the plays. If you're not, then I don't have anything to describe. So no, it all goes hand in hand.
We're talking to the voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide. We're talking to Eli Gold here on the game as we get things started on a Friday afternoon. Eli, let me go back and give some salutes to Phil Savage. What was it like working with him for the last 9 years?
Phil was great. He made me a better broadcaster. And I think as any good play-by-play and color man do, we complimented each other in a good way. I mean, even with Snake, going back to Kenny, I'm a professional describer, okay? The next down I play will be my first. And I can study, and I can watch tape and film and study some more and talk to all the participants, but I'll never be able to bring to the table what a Kenny Stabler did or what a Phil Savage did or whatever qualities of a player or coach that my new partner is going to bring, whomever that might be. I've not taken snaps. I never was under center in the SEC. I never won a Super Bowl. I never coached or played collegiately as Phil. I was never a National Football League general manager. So I can try my best to uphold my part. But all of these gentlemen who I've had the pleasure of working with in most recent years, I leaned on them and will continue to do so with whomever my new partner is. because they have been there and done that. Whoever the new guy is, I honestly don't know. I have no idea. But certainly he will be a player of the past, and he's been there and done that, and that's something that I just cannot bring to the table. So that's been a wonderful chemistry and a wonderful combination. And I do like to think that I can work with anyone. I have been blessed to be able to, be comfortable with whomever is beside me, and I know my role. Why would you want to hear Eli analyze something when you got a guy who was an NFL quarterback, Super Bowl winner, or an NFL general manager, or whatever? So I'm not out to show how bright I am, because I'm not that bright. I am there to set up the analyst, and Phil, obviously, and Snake before him were able to step right in and do a spectacular job for all of our Bama fans.
Eli, will you get at least a argument? Will you get not an argument, but a recommendation? I mean, do you get a sheet of paper? I mean, any chance that they'll ask Eli Gold and maybe his thoughts on, because you got to build rapport, you got to build chemistry, you got to be able to like the guy that you're sitting beside. Will they get your input?
Well, yes, I'm sure I will be asked. As a matter of fact, I did submit a piece of paper today with some suggested names. I was not, I'm not going to share them on the air, so no need to bother asking. Now, I am not the decision maker, nor should I be. Our boss, Jim Carabin, along with Greg Byrne, and I'm sure Coach Saban, and somebody from our rights holder at Learfield, collectively that group will make the decision. But, I dare say whomever it is, and I'm not being a wise guy here, I have absolutely no idea, none whatsoever. Obviously, this all just came down yesterday. But, I've gone through my mind, and I can't imagine that anybody who is selected is not someone that I already know, whether it's through the history of Bama from years ago, whether it's the more recent history, whether it's whatever. Chances are I know the person, and we have interacted in the past, and I thank God I have been able to I get along with everybody. I really
Sure.
do. I'm not saying I'm the greatest guy in the world, but I get along with everybody. So, the biggest thing for whomever the new person is will be, once we get on the air, working out our timing so we don't talk over each other. And that was no different than when I worked with Doug Layton, when I worked with that one year, 10 years ago, when we had 14 different color men as we were looking for a replacement for Snake. And it was the same way when Kenny first started, and the same thing when Phil first started. We were not as smooth in game one as we were in game 119 or whatever it might have been. So, but it's not going to be difficult, because whomever that group hires and decides upon will be a qualified, that's the big word, a qualified person. They're not going to hire somebody just because he's a nice guy. They're going to hire somebody who's a nice guy, but also has the ability to analyze a football game. And that's, so I'll have no problem with whomever it is.
What do you think this guy would be in his previous experience in radio, or just a guy that understands the games and the complexity of the Nick Saban process?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. Kenny Stabler had done limited broadcasting. Phil Savage had done no broadcasting.
Wow.
Doug Layton was nothing but a broadcaster. That's all he had done in his career. So, we've had all sorts of folks who fit those three different criteria. So I think, though, whomever it is going to have to be knowledgeable, because we have a very knowledgeable fan base. You can't you can't pull the wool over the eyes of the Alabama listener, the Alabama fan. Our fan base is too knowledgeable about the game of football. So whomever, Jim Carabin and Greg Byrne and Nick Saban and the guys from Learfield, whomever they select, you know that person will have a solid football background.
Yeah, but I think it is kind of fun, and I know you're not going to give us your list, but it's when last night when the news broke, we started looking at social networks and Facebook and the Alabama fans, the message boards, and just comments, and you thought about so many guys that have went through this program that have went on to have a lot of success, and I'm excited to not only see them in their football days, but I'm also excited to see, like a guy like Barry Jones, like an A.J. McCarron, like a Reggie Ragland, that next role in life post-football and what these leaders are going to be able to accomplish. Because, when you study under one of the world's greatest leaders, you pick up those skill set.
There's no question.
Yeah.
But you get different stuff.
Sure.
You get different good stuff. I mean, Snake he analyzed the game from a player's eyes. Kenny would sit there during a game, and his preparation was different than Phil's preparation, and both of their preparation is different than mine. Phil would show up with tons of papers and notes out the yin-yang, and he had everything about everybody. Snake's preparation was life experience. I'm not going to lie to you. He didn't come in with with 10 pieces of papers chock full of factoids. But those factoids were in his brain. And as the game played out, Snake would be sketching plays. He'd be writing down something, and then he'd reference that back in the fourth quarter. He'd say, now remember, Eli, they had this same 3rd and 8 situation back in the first quarter, and he's going back in his yellow legal pad where he had diagrammed the play that they ran in that situation back in the first quarter. Everybody's preparation is different. So, I dare say whomever is brought in as Phil's replacement will, prepare the way they are used to preparing, and will obviously have to look at the game the way they know how. Kenny looked at it as a player. Phil looked at it more analytically as a general manager, player personnel kind of person, although he was an on-the-field coach back in the Bill Curry days. But he was, I think, more analytical of things in some regards from his administrative background than Snake, who was predominantly X's and O's. And both men, obviously, were spectacular doing it in their own style. So, it'll be interesting whoever is hired. But again, I come back to the fact that the most important thing for the group of gentlemen who will be doing that hiring, and I am not on that list, but the gentlemen who are, and I have been asked, and I'm not being ignored by them. Don't get me wrong. I did submit a list of potential candidates, but whomever they hire will be somebody who is qualified. This is Alabama. This is a big network, a huge network with affiliates as far away as Hawaii and all across the country. International listeners through the internet and the web and all sorts of stuff. They'll hire somebody very, very qualified.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. But it just shows you the interest. I mean, you throw out who's going to be the color analyst, and it's like, for the next month, we'll probably talk about it. And we'll try to play the guessing game. All right, Eli, just one quick question. How long was the list?
Whose list?
Your list that you submitted.
It was long enough to have all the names on it that I wanted to submit.
There you go.
Yep.
I love the answer. But hey,
I'm not being. I'm not trying to be a wise guy here.
Sure.
But it would be totally inappropriate for me to bring any names to the forefront. And who knows? There's likely to be a couple, 3 guys whose names, at least to me, weren't even on the radar, who might just pop up.
Sure.
And if nothing else, want to be considered, or they're on somebody else's list. So I did submit some names, and whether they take them to heart and hire one or don't, that matters not to me. I'm ready to go and looking forward to getting to know and work with whomever, getting to know better and work with whomever my new partner is.
Eli Gold, the voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Appreciate you spending a couple of minutes with us this afternoon. I appreciate the time, and I hope you have a great afternoon. Hopefully we can catch up in August, and we'll be talking about the new color analyst and getting ready for Alabama-Louisville down in Orlando. Thank you.
It'll be here before we know it. Ryan, take care. All you folks have a wonderful remainder of the summer.